Hello, everyone. This is Eli Sommer, and today I'd like to talk to you about movement in immersive and maladaptive daydreaming. Movement has been known to be associated with altered state of consciousness. People, for example, engaged in religious spiritual activities such as um, Sufi chanting are also known to practice moving in circles, stomping the feet. And in Turkey, for example, the twirling dervishes are spinning around themselves. All of that in order to create an altered state of consciousness in which they achieve higher levels of spirituality. Uh, Recently, I've talked to dozens of individuals in depth about the role and the meaning of movement in their daydreaming. This is part of a research that I've just completed, and it was submitted for publication. What we found out is that there is a group of people who don't need movement at all in order to daydream. They can be completely still and still have very vivid and elaborate and rich and enjoyable fantasies. On the other extreme, there are those who absolutely cannot activate their immersive or maladaptive daydreaming without movement. But the majority of people who I talked to report to me that movement is preferable because it has a function, because it enhances their fantasy. They can daydream without it, but their experience is much more powerful and enjoyable when movement is involved. And there is a variety of movements that people report. Of course, pacing is the most prevalent one. People like to daydream when they jog, when they run, when they power walk, or when they pace back and forth in their own rooms. People like to daydream when they are bicycling, or even motion associated with motor vehicles is conducive to intense daydreaming in this population. But walking is not the only form of movement that is reported. Some people rock their feet, stomp their feet, move their hands, twirl an object in their hands. Others engage in more subtle movements that is associated with the unfolding scenario, and that would be gesturing, smiling, hugging, kissing behaviors that act out the fantasized events. Um, what are the functions of the daydreaming? I was very curious about that, and apparently there are two main kinds of functions, and I would call it bottom up and top down type of functions. In other words, what are the bottom up function, meaning up is the mind and bottom is the body? Is here is the type of stereotypical repetitive movements that generates an intensified focusing. So some people report that they need this behavior, they need the pacing, the rocking, in order to improve their concentration, to the point where some even called it to self-hypnotize themselves. So this body movement sort of blocks out all the external stimuli and helps them concentrate internally. How that works, we don't know, but we are aware of similar activities when people try to, for example, as I said, in religious and spiritual activities, we see this in churches, we see this among the Muslim Sufis and even Jews. who are playing rock back and forth, and that obviously serves as some sort of vehicle for improved attention. The top-down function is associated with what's happening in the daydream itself. That can influence the movement. So some of the respondents in my series of interviews taught me that it is extremely tempting and intensifying the daydreaming experience if they actually act out or embody what's happening in their mind. So the gesturing, the mouthing, the laughing, the talking out loud, the fighting gestures, all of these external behaviors that may look odd to the outside onlooker are just other means to reify, to make the fantasy experience as real, not just in the mind, but also in the mind-body complex that constitutes who we are and what our experience is. So this is fascinating stuff. Again, when we don't know enough about something, we ask the experts by experience, and luckily we get a good response from the maladaptive daydreaming community, who teach us a lot about this experience. Next, we need to generate studies that are hypothesis-based, and also perhaps later on move to brain imaging studies that would shed further light on this very interesting mental and body activity. Thank you very much.